Welcome back. Sorry about the late start. I have rather a lot of stuff that I have to get organised for something like this, and so therefore I was moving things around, setting things up at the very last minute because, yeah, there's a lot of setup for this. So I apologise if you have had to sort of wait and you were expecting me to start like zap on time. Was not my intention to not do that. This is all about the basic Dungeons & Dragons or core Dungeons & Dragons 5e rules. What I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to talk about the basics in terms of combat. For those of you who need help with that, there is going to be a lot of demonstration, and I'm going to explain a lot of stuff. There's a reason why you can see a battle mat out with miniatures and dice and so forth. I have a whiteboard, I can write things up, so I can explain things a lot better than I would normally be able to. I'm going to run a poll for those of you who are here, and please feel free to answer these if you want to. If you don't, that's fine. If you have questions already that you want to ask about the game and you're not too sure if they're going to be covered in my presentation, just ask them now. Just type them into the chat. It is set to subscriber only, so if you haven't been a subscriber for at least 20 minutes, then you won't be able to type anything into the chat. So I do these every week. Every week we roll back around and we talk about the rules. Okay, so my suggestion is get in there, grab some food, some drink, get comfortable. There's a lot to discuss. I'm going to do a slideshow first. I'm going to then open it up for Q&A or questions and answers from you in the chat, and then we're going to do some demonstration. I'm going to demonstrate a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about today, because that is the whole purpose of this this live stream. Is all about showing you stuff rather than just explaining stuff. So there has to be some show. Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Weller, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, because I usually do, and today we're not talking necessarily about the wizard, but the wizard might be involved. This is a Dungeons & Dragons 5e rules, core rules lesson. This is lesson 2, where I cover the basics of combat mechanics. Now, for those of you who have questions, don't worry, I'm probably going to answer most of those questions today and the presentation that I have. The overview for today is I will be covering combat initiative, types of actions in combat, weapon attacks, casting a spell, the dash action, the disengage action, the help action, the dodge action, the search action, using an object during a combat, and also miscellaneous recommendations. Like everything that I do, I have a particular focus, and that is I will explain everything as clearly as I possibly can. I will demonstrate much of these concepts to you with dice mechanics involved, so that means maps, miniatures, and dice. And I will also get you to participate in some way. In this case, I can't get you to come and play with me, but I can certainly get you to participate in the chat. And that's the intention for today. So we're doing pretty well. We're getting closer and closer to what I really want to do. I just wanted to let you know that Dungeons & Dragons or Wizards of the Coast has purchased D&D Beyond. So the basic games rules for Dungeons & Dragons 5e are available for free. You can access them on D&D Beyond, or you can download a PDF. So you don't have to go and buy the game. If you want to just play, you can. There's nothing stopping you. Combat initiative. Let's talk about combat initiative. One of probably the most confusing aspects of the game for a lot of people, and I can totally understand why. First off, normally the Dungeon Master opens a combat encounter with a description of what the monster is threatening the characters with. So it might be the monsters threatening the characters, or the characters are going to threaten the monsters or the NPCs or the creatures. And then the Dungeon Master, after describing the scene, will ask for a roll of initiative. And what happens is that you roll initiative. It's a special ability check. And it is the result of adding your dexterity modifier to a 20-sided dice roll. So it's fairly simple and easy to actually figure out, like many of the dice mechanics in Dungeons & Dragons. You don't have to worry too much about that sort of thing. All the player characters and all the monsters have to roll for initiative, okay? And they're placed in order of highest to lowest, with the highest initiative starting first in combat. Now, if you have the same type of monster as a dungeon master, you would normally just roll once for all of your monsters. If you have a couple of different types of monsters, then you might roll separately for each one of those types of monsters. But you don't generally roll for every single monster on the table where you have to number them 1 to 6 or 1 to 8 or whatever the heck it is. That's rather hard to actually navigate through. I know some people prefer to do it that way, but no, we don't generally do that. Anyone who's surprised doesn't get to act or take a turn in the first round. Surprise only occurs in the first round of a combat, if it did take place at all. So surprise is essentially the other side doesn't know that you're there. So you've either hidden or you've crept up on them and they're unaware of your presence, and so you get to act, but anybody who's surprised doesn't get to act. So you don't make a main action. There's no main action for you. There's no bonus action. Okay, you don't need to get you don't get a movement. You don't get to have an interaction. But at the end of your turn, when it's finished, you get your reaction back. Okay, you don't get to take your reaction on your turn, but on somebody else's turn after you've had your turn come through and you've done nothing, you get your reaction back. So that means that it is possible to have an opportunity attack or cast the shield spell if it's a reaction spell. If you want to, okay? But it has to be after your turn if you are surprised. So that's the basics around combat initiative and sort of how it looks. And I'm going to actually demonstrate how to do initiative, so don't freak out and think that I haven't given you enough information, because there's more to come. The actual process, as I said, you roll a 20-sided dice, you add your dexterity modifier, and those two the number of the dice and the dexterity modifier becomes your initiative check or your initiative roll, and that's the number you're looking to put into order. Nice and simple, really, really, really easy. Types of actions in combat. Your action is actually the main thing a creature can do, whether it be a player character or a monster. There are a wide range of different possibilities that you can use your main action for, or your action. This includes attacking, casting a spell, or some sort of maneuver, which I will describe very shortly. There's also the bonus action. This is a special action. It is usually linked to an ability. It could be a spell or some other feature. It may even be linked to one of your main actions. Okay, it's the bonus action. Never get confused with the bonus action and the action. The bonus action is not the same as the main action. Okay, you don't always get a bonus action. It's completely different. It's a special type of action. Movement. You get to move during your turn. This is your creature's ability to change position around the battlefield by either walking, running, flying, crawling, swimming, and climbing. The only time you would get to use your full movement or full speed is when you're walking or running. Sometimes flying as well, actually. But if you are crawling, swimming, or climbing, then you'll generally find that your speed is halved. So you can only move half the distance you would normally be able to move. There's also an interaction. This is a very quick thing or task that you can do that's part of your creature's main action or movement. They are so quick that they really don't correspond to having done one thing at all, really. It's free. You get one of these during your turn. And then lastly, we have what is called the reaction. It's an instantaneous response to a trigger of some kind, which can occur on the creature's turn, on your player character's turn, or the monster's turn, or someone else's turn. The thing to remember is the reaction is something you don't actually do. It's a response, and it's activated by a trigger. And as long as you've got that, you've pretty much got the gist of it. Now, with regard to your actions, in your turn, you get one action, one bonus action, one movement, one interaction, and you get one reaction per round. That's it. There are some special cases where this gets ignored, but they are special abilities that are in the game. They are the exception to the rule. This is the general consensus in terms of how you would operate. Okay, we've covered the basic actions. Look, let's talk about attacks. Attack types. There's a couple of different attack types. There are 4, in fact. You have your melee weapon attacks. These are made at close quarter, right up close. They're usually using a sword, an axe, a mace, or a spear. Now, when I say a spear, I mean you're jabbing somebody with it, you're not throwing it. A ranged weapon attack is made using, it's usually short range or long range. These can be bows, crossbows, a sling, or a gun. Then thrown weapon attacks, they're made at short range, usually with a dagger. You would throw a dagger or a hand axe or a javelin or even a spear. A light hammer could be thrown, and nets. That's the third type of attack. And then finally we have unarmed strikes. This is when you punch something, kick something, headbutt it. It is made at close quarter, right up close. You use your fists, feet, elbows, knees, and head. So they all have a particular use, and every character can do these attacks. Some can do them better than others. Now, we're playing Dungeons and Dragons. That's fantasy, right? So that means there's got to be some magic involved as well. Well, there is. Casting a spell, like, how does that work? Well, there are in fact 5 different types of spells, one of which is actually not used very often, but I will mention it. And that is, first off, melee attack spells. This is made at close quarter, and you are casting a spell. It is made with an attack roll targeting the enemy's armor class. And this could be something like Booming Blade, the spell Booming Blade, in conjunction with an attack, so it's a melee attack spell. Shocking Grasp, when you electrify somebody. Inflict Wounds, when you hurt somebody by touching them. Flame Blade, and Spiritual Weapon. Now, Spiritual Weapon, it's not coming from your character or the monster that is cast the Spiritual Weapon. It's coming from the Spiritual Weapon itself, but it's still a melee attack spell, essentially. Right, next, ranged attack spells are made at short range and long range with an attack roll that targets, again, the enemy's armor class. This could be something like Eldritch Blast that the Warlock has, Ray of Frost, where you try to freeze somebody, Firebolt, where you try to set somebody on fire if you can, Guiding Bolt, and then Chaos Bolt. These are all sort of rays, energy bolts. These are attack rolls, okay? Ranged attack spells. Next, melee saving throw spells. These are made at close quarter using a saving throw that targets the enemy, and there aren't that many that I can think of. And if I do remember some of them, then I'll put them down. But I put it down as a category. The last one, the second to last one, is ranged saving throw spells. These are made at short range and long range with a saving throw targeting the enemy, and they usually involve, of course, some type of DC. These could be things like Fireball, which targets your dexterity saving throw to stop you from, you're going to wind up catching on fire if you get hit by a Fireball. Lightning Bolt, where you get electrocuted by a bolt of lightning. This is another dexterity saving throw. Sacred Flame, another dexterity saving throw, and this is sort of magical fire. And then Toll the Dead. Okay, these are all ranged saving throw spells. The last one is the automatic success spell. They don't require an attack roll or a saving throw, they just work. These are things like Prestidigitation, Mage Hand, which allows you to manipulate something from a distance. Prestidigitation is basically the universal create magic spell in Dungeons and Dragons. Light, which creates light. Mending, which fixes something. Message, which allows you to send a message telepathically to somebody. Then you've got Magic Missile, which essentially does damage, but you don't make a saving throw or attack roll. It always hits. As long as you can see the target, it's always going to be effective, okay? And then Druidcraft, which is very much like Prestidigitation. We can do a lot of different utility things. So those are the different types of ways you can cast a spell. But that's not the only thing that you can do in combat. There's actually quite a few other things that are listed. The first one I want to talk about, outside of our basic attacks and initiative and so forth, is the dash action. Dash requires you use your main action to move your character or your creature or your monster, their speed, as extra movement. So what that means is, during your turn when you use your move, you can move your speed. If it's 30 feet, you move 30 feet. If you decide you want to dash, you must use your action, and it allows you to move your speed. So if you have a speed of 30 feet, then you would move 30 feet. So that means essentially in one turn you can move 30 feet, take your action and take the dash action and move another 30 feet. The dash action never allows you to move double your speed, okay? You're not moving 60 feet if your speed is 30 feet. You're moving 30 feet. But overall, during the turn that you complete with your move and your action, dashing, you would be able to move 60 feet. All right. A very useful tool. So if you want to get somewhere fast, that's the one you want to use. Disengage. When you want to get out of trouble, this is what you want to use. Disengage requires you use your main action in conjunction with your movement, okay? So a character or a monster doesn't provoke an attack of opportunity. Opportunity attacks are bad, okay? When you leave the threatened space of a creature, so if you are right up close to them and you move away from them, they have the opportunity to whack you, and you don't want that to happen, so you would use the disengage. This is how you get out of trouble. And then you move away from the threatened space. Now, it also means that when you disengage, it's active for the entire movement during your turn. So if you can move 30 feet with your character, or 6 squares if you're using a grid, then that means you can move those whole 6 squares or their whole 30 feet, and you never provoke an attack of opportunity. It means you can walk right round the enemy to the back line if you wanted to with the disengage action, and they can't do diddly squat. But it also means you can get out of trouble if you need to. Another very useful ability that you can engage in, and that is the dodge action. If you want to survive, the dodge action is pretty good at doing that sort of thing. It's kind of like the matrix dodge, I guess. Not quite as impressive, maybe. It requires you use your main action so that your character or monster are able to move and make it more difficult for enemies to attack you. The idea is that every time you take the dodge action for that round until your turn starts again, all the enemies that try to attack you have disadvantage on attack rolls, okay? And you are granted advantage on dexterity saving throws. So that's very useful. Like you don't want to be hit, this is the one to use. Stand in the middle of a doorway, block up the area, and let the enemy try to hit you with disadvantage, and you get advantage on dexterity saving throws. It doesn't allow you to have advantage on every single saving throw, but dexterity saving throws does apply. All right, what happens if somebody needs some help and you need to do something to assist them? Well, there is the help action. The help action, much like all of the other actions I've been talking about, uses your main action from your character or your monster, and you aid another creature's completion of a task by granting them advantage on the next ability check or attack roll. It only applies to attack rolls and ability checks. That includes skill checks, because that's just another type of ability check. Unfortunately, the help action does not apply to saving throws. So if somebody needs to make a saving throw, you can't assist them with the help action. So leave that alone. Very useful. You'll probably find you'll use this more outside of combat than you do inside of combat, frankly. But it's still there if you want to assist somebody so they can get advantage on an attack roll. What if you need to find something? In the middle of a battle, you've got to try and find something. This requires you use your main action. This is the search action. So you get your character or monster to try to detect or find something that is hidden or hard to notice during a battle, because it's hard to find out where things are because there's a lot going on in the middle of a pitched battle. So you make a wisdom or perception check, or you might be required to make an intelligence investigation check, depending on what the Dungeon Master seems to think is appropriate. They will decide. So you make that check. That uses up your action, which means you won't be able to cast a spell and you won't be able to make an attack, unfortunately. But it's using all of your energy all of the time, that whole 6 seconds during that round, to actually focus on what's going on. I don't recommend using this action that often. You will find that the benefits to it are very minimal, unfortunately, and therefore, again, this action is something that tends to be a trap for most people. Use an object. What if I want to interact with something? Well, I already talked about the interaction, didn't I? Where you could do something very quickly and fast. Well, use an object fills in the gaps. Use an object requires you use your main action. It's not free. You would have your character or your monster use their main action, and they're trying to manipulate an object or the environment if the interaction has already been used. So if you've already used your interaction and you want to do something else with the environment or an object in the same turn, then you would now have to use your use an object action, okay? You don't get to use your interaction because you've already had one. So that second time you're trying to do an interaction, it becomes a use an object action. And now you can't attack, and now you can't cast a spell, but what it does do is allow you to do things that you need to get done quickly in the middle of a battle, and it sometimes does come up. So you would use an object if you have already used your interaction during your turn, or the Dungeon Master deems that whatever you're trying to do with the object or environment is not a free action, and the task is too difficult, requires too much time or energy or effort, and therefore you must burn up your main action to do so. That is basically how use an object works. It is pretty useful in the right circumstances, particularly if you are trying to open a door that is jammed shut. Okay, there are usually miscellaneous recommendations that I give for everything that I do here, and so I'm going to give you some miscellaneous recommendations to help you contend with the basics of combat. And that is the following. When unsure what to do or what to apply in any given situation in a battle, you've only got 4 choices. It's either going to be an ability check, a skill check, which is just a different type of ability check, a bit more specialized, an attack roll, or a saving throw. Determine, Dungeon Masters, determine which one you think is most appropriate for the action that the player has selected to perform. Just because I've listed off a whole bunch of things that you can do in combat, that's not the end of the story. You can do anything you like in Dungeons and Dragons. You can always try something. So how a Dungeon Master adjudicates that, well, they decide whatever you're trying to do, what would be appropriate. An ability check, a skill check, an attack roll, or a saving throw. It's going to be one of those 4, okay? Otherwise, just allow automatic success or failure if you seem to think that it makes sense. So Dungeon Masters, if the players are trying to do something that you know is impossible to achieve, don't have them roll dice. Just say it can't be done. If there is something that you know is so easy that they really shouldn't have to roll dice, then just let them succeed at it. Yes, you can do that, okay? It's not a problem. You are capable of pulling a rope out of your backpack with no problems whatsoever. There is no dice roll required. Yes, you know how to brush your teeth. There is no skill check required to do so. So those things usually cover everything that you would need to know about how to deal with any kind of battle in Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm hoping that this was useful to people. If it was, great. I would very much like to know what aspects of the game you are struggling with. So please, in the comments section, tell me, what rules are you having trouble with? Which ones do you need explaining? Was there anything that I explained today that didn't make sense to you? And maybe I need to do a better job of explaining it to you or demonstrating it, which I will do very shortly. Or is there some sort of feedback you would like to give in terms of, your experience of playing the game? And that's pretty much it. And I would want to say, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay, we've done with our main presentation. We're going to go into Q&A, and I'm going straight to the map, people. For those of you who are wondering why I've done that and not gone to my face, I'm going to go straight to the map. I think that's going to be far more important today than my face. So this is my layout. I'm about to show you how to do initiative. If you're unfamiliar with how to do initiative, then this is the time. If you are unfamiliar on how attacks are made with characters, then I can do that. Casting spells, I can do some of that as well. Okay, there's lots of things that we can demonstrate, and I can move things around and show you. Okay. I want to just respond to the chat. I want to say a very quickly, actually, I'll go back to my face. We'll come back to this, Matt, so don't think we're not going to do this because there's hardly anybody in chat commenting, so therefore we can get through that really quickly and just get on to the demonstration part, okay? Nacho Man. Hello, Nacho Man. Nacho Man is a patron and supports me on Patreon. And if you want these classes to continue, the best way to support me is on Patreon. You can pay as little as $1 a month and you get everything that I put up there, and you support these live stream classes continuing. There's about 5 of them that go every week, covering pretty much everything about the game, frankly, plus a sort of a feature live stream where I cover a specific topic for whatever reason it is. Okay. Otherwise, super chats and super stickers are always welcome as well. Let's have a look and see who is needing assistance. Are you having trouble understanding any of the Dungeons & Dragons 5e combat mechanics? Only 12% said yes. No, 6%. Sometimes 69%. Well, even like I think everybody has trouble at some point with something, right? And then just watching, 12%. Okay, all right. It's 16 votes. Okay, what do you got here, Nacho Man? Afternoon, Fred. My question is, when you're already in combat and another NPC joins the fight, enters the room halfway through, whereabouts do you put them in the initiative? Well, what you're talking about is a third party, aren't you? Essentially, that's what you're talking about as a third party, Nacho. So I think I'm going to actually go to the battle grid in a second and show you this, okay? I think that's probably the best way to sort of illustrate it rather than me explain it. So I'll demonstrate it. Hello, Sika. How are you doing? Rookser Zero. Hello. Now, Rookser Zero has a YouTube channel. He does a lot of live drawing and painting, mostly drawing monsters and characters and so forth. You should go and check him out sometime. And then Shiner81. Hello. How are you doing? Ski Dog. How's it going, Ski Dog? And Agile Monk. Agile Monk is also a patron and supports me on Patreon, and I do appreciate it. Okay, let's go and answer Nacho Man's question. Like, how the heck do we deal with a third party coming into the battle part way through? So let's go over to my workspace. For this demonstration, I think probably the easiest way is I'm going to use some goblins to indicate group 1. And I will just shuffle these little fellas over here. Let's just say like that. So I'm going to take some of these away. So we'll just make a small group of them. So right now we've got way too much going on. All right, so small group of goblins. Where are we? This is our group 1. Okay. And group 2, because I don't have anything else that I sort of can think of that I could use, I'm going to bring these little fellas over here, our goblins. That's the enemy. These are the player characters here. They're all going to have their own initiative. And then we're going to have a third party, which is going to be some wolves. For those of you who don't know, these wolves are part of a Kickstarter that 3D Printing Pro has done. Or has been putting together, and they have been painted by my brother who has a channel called Mini FX. Okay, so he's just painted them recently. I'm going to use this as the alternative group, the third group that will come into play part way through the battle. So I'm going to move that. We'll shift that out of the way, and that will allow me partial coverage of what we're doing here. We'll move them a little bit further up. Maybe that'll solve my problems a little bit. Give myself some space. Okay. All right. I think we've got it pretty much sorted out. All right. This is what we'll do. I'm going to roll. If you have a third group coming in, what you can do is you can roll them at the very beginning and bring them in later. That's fine. So you would have like a second DM. So this would be my second DM. Or you can, it's much more difficult to bring in a third group outside of the player characters and the goblins. It's much harder to do that in the middle of a battle. So I don't recommend doing that if you can help it. So this is what we'll do. I'm going to go wizard, fighter, rogue, cleric. DM1, which will be the goblins. Actually, maybe I should just write goblins. That will eliminate some confusion then. Goblins. I'm going to make one roll for the goblins. Goblins, wolves. Okay. So this is what you can see. This is our initiative. So we need to determine what the heck they are all going to have, right? So the easiest way for dealing with any of that is, I'll move this over. For those of you who haven't figured it out, we are now demonstrating initiative. Okay, so initiative. Here we go. And we'll do the first one. I will do the wizard, which is, the wizard is going to be a 2 plus a 20-sided dice roll. So let's get rid of all these dice here. And we've got a dice right there. Okay. I know what it is now. I'm using the pre-made characters from the original Dungeons & Dragons starter set. I'm using these sheets here out of the original Dungeons & Dragons starter set for Lost Mine of Phandelver. The pre-made characters, they're at a level 1. So if you're wondering why I've got 2, that's the dexterity modifier of that wizard. Okay. Roll a 20-sided dice. I'll put that there. Okay, so I've rolled a 13. I don't know if you can see 13 there, but that is a 13 plus 2 comes to 15. 2 and 13 is 15. So I'll put that over here, transfer it over. Okay, next one. I won't write down wizard next time. I'm just going to write down the next one. So the fighter has a -1 to their initiative because that's what their modifier is. That's their dexterity modifier. So I roll a 20-sided dice. And I rolled a 12. 12 minus 1 is 11. So we write down 11 over here for the fighter. Next one, rolling along. Rogue will be 3. Their dexterity modifier is a 3, so roll a 20-sided dice. I got a 1, not great. So come out with 4. 3 and 1 is 4. And then the last one will be our cleric. And unfortunately, the cleric has a -1 to their dexterity. And then we roll a 20-sided dice. And that came out as, what is that number? That is a 9. 9 minus 1 is 8. So transfer that over. Okay. All right, so that's all the player characters. We've got them sorted out. We're going to put them into order very shortly. But our first group are not the wolves. They are way over here. So they don't come in. I'm putting them on the map just so you know what our third group is. Okay, we'll do the goblins next. Now the goblins, their stat block is, their initiative is always their dexterity modifier. Okay, and you'll find it, it's pretty easy on this little card. It's right here. It's tiny. I know you can't see it. But they have a 2 for their initiative. I'm going to roll only once for them. I'm not rolling for all 4 of them. I rolled a 20. Not great for the players. Okay, so that's 22. So they have a 22. Now, at this point, I'm going to roll for the wolves before anything else. That doesn't mean they don't necessarily come into the battle straight away. All it means is I'm going to deal with them when I'm ready. So I bring the wolves in at round 1, no, or round 2, or round 3, or round 4. Frankly, it doesn't matter. It's really up to you. You are the dungeon master. You work all that sort of stuff out. So the initiative for your wolf is they got an initiative of +2 because their dexterity modifier is a +2. Okay, so that's what we'll be using for this case. So it's a 2, so I'll roll that, get rid of that. And we'll do the wolves now. Roll that dice. Got a 9. 9 and 2 is 11. So they have an 11. Okay, now I'm going to place them all into order so that you can see where we're going to place it. So biggest number at the top, so the goblins go at the top. These will be the goblins. Okay, that's the first one. I'm going to make these the wolves. They'll be wherever they're going to go. After that, that's 22. The next highest number is 15, so that's the wizard. Like so. The next highest number along is the 11. which is the fighter and the wolves. So what I'm going to do is, normally in the rules, the Dungeon Master decides if you have a stalemate, like you have the same number, Dungeon Master in 5e decides what you select. Like, it could be a roll-off, you could use whoever's got the highest dexterity modifier, or they can just decide to go first. And I always go first because monsters don't really last very long. So you want to get them in there and doing something. So I'll put them first, fighter, so wolf, fighter, and then the last couple is the cleric, and the rogue is going to be last, coming in at number 4. So that's what our initiative looks like. So what we would do is, provided there wasn't surprise involved, if there's no surprise involved, all you're going to do is you're going to look at the situation and say, okay, my goblins act first, they're going to do something first, they're going to come in and make some attacks, and so they move up 5, 10, 15, so they can move up. They can move pretty fast. They've got a speed of 30 feet, so they can get in close enough and get after that wizard. And I'll move up here and attack there, move up to there, and that's close enough. So each square on the grid represents 5 feet, okay? So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. That's how far it can move. It's quite a distance, okay? So they move up, and then they make their attacks. And they have scimitars and short bows. Now, goblins don't need to move up and make attacks with scimitars. They could just shoot and move if they wanted to, because they have a thing called nimble escape. I'm not going to go into the basics of how to run that, but they move up. That's their action. It's now the wizard's turn. The wizard does whatever it is. Cast a spell, maybe shocking grasp or whatever. Okay, so you have your goblins moving up, your wizard casts a spell, probably wouldn't try to move away because that would be bad for them. And then we move into the wolves. Now, the wolves in the first round, we don't want them to do anything. So the wizard's gone. Wolves aren't going to come in at this point, right? They're coming in later on. So what we're going to do is we'll accept past them, and we go to the fighter. The fighter takes their action, moves, makes some attacks, or makes one attack against one of the goblins. We move on. We take the cleric. The cleric decides to cast a spell, say bless, and then stays back out of the battle and just moves over, like so. And then the rogue decides to shoot one of the goblins at a distance, and they've finished their turn, and that's round 1 complete. Yep, we go to round 2. Back here, the goblins make their attacks. Maybe some have died, some have not. I'm not going to worry about it for now. Wizard does something. Hopefully it's still alive. And then round 2, we decide the wolves are going to come in at round 2. Yeah. This is when we've already pre-set up our initiative. If you try to bring in your enemy and you have to roll initiative later on and you've already started the battle, that's a pain in the butt. So you try to avoid doing that if you can. It's always better if you have a third party or fourth party. It's possible to have a combat that has 4 different groups involved. Try to bring them in later. So the wolves then move up from behind, and they move pretty quickly, and say maybe they go after the wizard and the cleric. Okay, and then everybody else takes their turn if they're still alive. Okay, so that's essentially how I would go about dealing with initiative, but also a third group coming into a battle. If that's what you wanted to know the answer to, that's the answer I'm going to give. All right, just let me drink some water and I'll look at the next question. Nacho man, you need to let me know if that was explained well enough, okay? And it's a good question, by the way. Seeker already learned something about the interplay between surprise and reactions. Did you, Seeker? Oh, well, good. Okay, so what do you got here, Rook 0? Maybe grappling and grabbing aren't part of the basics, but I feel like it comes up a lot, and I always have to look it up. I mean, I intend to cover grapple and grabbing or grappling, shoving next week. But if you want me to demonstrate and explain some of that, I'm happy to do so. You let me know if people want me to talk about and demonstrate how a grapple or grab would work. I'll do that. Okay, you just need to say you want me to do that. Okay, Shiner 81. Hi Fred, when you grapple someone and move them, is there a limit to how far you can move them? Okay, so now I think I'm going to have to pull up D&D Beyond. There is a limit to how far you can move them, and it's based on how fast you can move. Okay, like all things, you can only move so far with your character. So if you successfully grab somebody, you can only move them a certain distance. Yep. And looks like we're going on to the tricky stuff today, so we will do that. Pardon me, I'm going to pull up the section so I can refer to it and point it out, and then I will then demonstrate what I mean. Okay, all right. So when you grapple a creature, you can only move them half the speed. You know, if you've got 30 feet of movement, you can only move them half their speed, half your speed. Okay, so if I have 30 feet of movement, I can only drag them or push them or shift their position by 15 feet, because that's half my speed. My speed was 30, it's now 15. So on my action, I grab, I use my movement to move them or drag them or pull them or push them in a particular direction. We're not shoving them over, we're just moving their position, okay? And that's it. Now, on the following turn, if they are still grabbed, then I can use my movement and my action to dash to move them much further than just 15 feet. They could go a total of 30 feet. So to give you an example here, let's get rid of some of these combatants here, because this is getting complicated now. And we'll say goodbye. Thank you very much. Your time was well spent, but move out of the way. All right, so let me demonstrate with just one combatant how it would look in terms of how you would move them. I think that's probably the easiest way to deal with this. Yep. Our fighter has grabbed the goblin and been successful, and they still have movement, so they can move them in any direction. They can go this way, 5, 10, 15. This fighter only moves 30 feet. So they can only move 15 feet. 5, 10, 15. That's it. Or if we go back to where we were, well, whichever, was it that square? I can't remember. We could go to the side. You could drag them this way. 5, 10, 15. They could go over here. Yep. You can go in any direction. You can even move them forward. 5, 10, 15. Okay. Essentially, you're changing their position. Now, in the wording for the spell, it actually for the attack, it actually says you're dragging them. Okay. But moving a grappled creature, when you move them, you can drag or carry the grappled creature. It does say carry, okay? Your speed, halving it. And basically, when they say drag, it doesn't mean that you can only go backwards. I know a lot of people get caught up on that and like, I can only go in one direction. No, not really. You can move them around. Okay, that's the whole point of grabbing or grappling in the first place, is the ability to maneuver and change their position. So you could push them into a fire or off the side of a building or something like that. You're doing that quite deliberately, right? That's why you use that action in the first place. Now, I'm hoping that makes sense. Did I cover that question adequately from what you had asked here? Let me have a look to see what else you have written down. So and as I said, on the next turn, if they're still grabbed, you can use your movement and your action, and you can move them now 30 feet. You could drag them all the way over here, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. You could drag them all the way over there by using your movement and your action to dash. Okay? All right. Okay, so Ski Dog was happy with that. Toto, Sauron, how's it going? We miss your face. Yes, but you don't want to see my face. We're actually got to demonstrate some stuff. I've got to show some people some attack rolls, I imagine, very quickly. Right. Nice. The Pathfinder initiative chart that I have, that too. Yeah, okay, yep. Major Laser, how's it going? That dry erase board toolset is pretty handy. Are you talking about this? You talking about that thing, or are you talking about the Pathfinder battle pad? The Pathfinder battle pad you can buy. Like, you can buy those things. This little whiteboard, this flexible whiteboard, it's a great huge sheet of magnetic strip that I bought from a hardware store when I was working at a hardware store, and I then attached to it some adhesive whiteboard sheet. So finding that is not that easy. and then I trimmed it, and I now have a flexible whiteboard which I can then put onto here. I can put onto my fridge if I want to. I have two of them actually, and I actually have a video that shows you how to make it. Okay, the Pathfinder battle pad. Yep, the Pathfinder battle pad is great because one allows you to write down the numbers, then you can see the numbers and then just put it into order, and then you can rub this all out after, once you've got your order, and say, okay, now that that's done, I can now use this to track with a whiteboard marker the hit points of my monsters. So I can now track it on this, and then I rub it out, and it's done, rather than using a piece of paper. But we're not here to talk about the Pathfinder battle pad, I suspect. Okay, you're running a third party, so you're running 3 different groups. So you've got the player characters and 2 groups run by the Dungeon Master. Okay, all right, good. All right, if Glassstaff surprises your party, good, because he very rarely does. And I'm glad this will help. Just put a battle pad on order after seeing yours. Well, nice, Seeker. I wasn't really. Yeah, okay, sure. You can make your own, really. I mean, you can just use a whiteboard if you really wanted to. It's essentially just a very thin whiteboard. It's just looks fancy, and it's got these little strips that are magnetic. They stick on. Okay. Fred, should be on commission from Pathfinder. Well, I don't know about that. People keep saying these sorts of things. Doesn't mean anything. Okay, so let's get on to a different question. Hopefully somebody else has got another question for me that I can contend with. Okay, so Toto, Sauron, how do you address mechanics regarding double weapon wielding? Would the second attack be done with the bonus action? Okay, all right. 2-weapon fighting. 2-weapon fighting can be done by anybody. Okay. The problem with 2-weapon fighting, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the rule, and then I'm going to demonstrate. Okay. I think that's probably going to be the easiest way to contend with your question, Toto. Is I'll show you the rule, and then we will actually demonstrate what that means at the table. I think that's the simplest way to contend with all of that. So let me just pull up a different screen here. For the life of me, apparently, Windows is not doing what I want it to do. Okay, that might be that seems to be doing something. Let's get my face. My face is in the way, so let's get rid of my face, and we'll just shrink me down a little bit because I don't need to be that big. Okay, right. So transition over. Let me show you the rule, and then let me demonstrate what that means. Okay? So, first off, 2-weapon fighting. When you take the attack action and attack with a light melee weapon, right, so it has to be a light melee weapon, so a short sword would be classified as that, and usually you're going to be using a short sword. You can use daggers if you want, but that you are holding in one hand, you can use a bonus action to attack with a different light melee weapon that you're holding in the other hand. So you have to be holding 2 weapons that are light. You don't add your ability modifier to the damage of the bonus attack. So the attack you make with your main action, you do it as normal, and I will demonstrate that in a second. But the bonus action attack, okay, on the offhand, is done with just you're not adding your bonus, okay? Your damage bonus doesn't get added at all. which is kind of a bummer, I realise, but that's sort of how the game works, and if we didn't do it that way, then it would just be too easy to do everything, right? That's sort of how it works. These rules might get changed in the future. If either weapon has the thrown property, you can throw the weapon instead of making a melee attack. So that means that you can throw one of the weapons with either your main action or your bonus action. Now, the thing to remember with two-weapon fighting is you do not get to use your bonus action to wield the light weapon unless you use your main action to attack. Okay, if you don't use your main action to attack, you don't get to use your bonus action to use the light melee weapon. That is the proviso. That's the order it has to go. Main attack, then bonus action. All right, so that's how that works. Now let's address your question, which has actually got a couple of different elements to it. So let me just pull up my map and show you what this looks like. Because I will use my little whiteboard, and we will just shuffle over to here. Here we go. I think probably in this case we're going to get rid of this character, and instead I will use, I think the rogue has a short sword, don't they? Yeah, there we go. Short sword rogue. And let's just assume that the rogue has two short swords out. Two short swords out. Yep. All right. Here's our goblin. Here's our rogue. We're going to make an attack. What does this look like? Right, well, first off, attack. Action. Our bonus for this character, I'm using the first level rogue from the Dungeons and Dragons 5e starter set, the original one. So the bonus with a short sword is a +5, and we get a 6-sided dice when we do our damage. Okay, and our modifier to hit and for damage is a +3. So 5 is the hit, and 3 is the damage. Okay, all right. So let's roll the 20-sided dice first. Move this up a bit. Main action. Okay, so I got a 19. Can you see that? It's a 19. 19 and 15, 24. 24 is greater than the armor class of the goblin. The goblin has only got an armor class of 15 if it's got a shield, and it's also got its leather armor on. Okay, so if it's got a shield out, it's only got a 15. So we are successful. Get equal to or greater than, we strike. Right, now we roll damage. Let's get rid of this 20-sided dice, and now we'll roll the damage dice. Okay, this is a 6-sided dice for a short sword. I rolled a 4. Our dexterity modifier, we're using our dexterity modifier because it's a finesse weapon. Okay, and we get to use either strength or dexterity with finesse weapons, and that's what a short sword is. So 4 is on the dice, plus our 3 comes to 7. So we do 7 points of damage to our goblin. Okay, which means basically our goblin is poked. Dead. Dead as a doorknob. So we need another goblin. We'll bring in his mate, because that goblin's dead. Okay, that was just the main action. So again, let's cross some stuff out. This is the bonus action now that's taking place. So bonus action, it's not your action, it's the bonus one. Bonus. This is the offhand attack with the other weapon in your other hand. You'll have noticed I rubbed out the 3 from our dexterity modifier. It's no longer an option for us, okay? We're just going to be rolling a dice for that. Right, make an attack roll. We're going to make our attack on this other goblin that's here, this buddy. I got a 13. Plus 5 is 18. Well, 18 is greater than and equal to the armor class of 15 of the goblin. So we strike the goblin. Great, kind of handy to have done that. This is the bonus action. We can't do this unless we use our main action to make an attack. Okay, with the light weapon. All right, now we roll damage. Whatever I get on the damage dice, that's it. And I do 4 points of damage with the bonus action attack. That's as simple as it works, people. I know it's confusing. I know it would be easier if it didn't work this way. But the great thing about two-weapon fighting is that anybody can do it as long as you are proficient with the weapon. That is a light. I've got the light quality, and as long as you have 2 of them, 1 in each hand, you can do it. So yeah, you covered pretty much all of the basics with regard to that. Okay, so now I won't go back to that just yet, and my face just yet. Let's just go to the chat and see where we are as we work through our examples here. Okay. So that was a hit. That was the hit. All right, so Toto Sauron, we've covered that. Is it KD Kodove? I don't know if I got your name right. I don't know. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to pronounce it. Kodove. KDONV. I'm just going to call you KD for now. Sorry. Where I get confused is when you start trying to understand combat when we have specialty situations. Yes. One of the worst things in Dungeons and Dragons is you have your general rules and then you have your specialty or exceptions to the rules. There's a lot of exceptions to Dungeons and Dragons 5e rules. It's very confusing. Okay, an example. Paladin casts Booming Blade and then wants to use Smite, like Divine Smites. Yes. Okay, so that example, as you have probably already guessed, is Booming Blade is got and if I remember right, it's a bonus action to cast Booming Blade. I think it is. And then your Divine Smite uses another part of your action. Yes, it can get very confusing. So you've got to understand that there are certain things you can't use too many things that require a bonus action. The game is designed to stop that from happening. So if you're wondering why do they do that? Well, because people would try to combine things like 2-weapon fighting and using something like Misty Step and Booming Blade and smiting and making an attack. You can't put it all into one turn. It just doesn't work. Okay. John B, how's it going? I'm so happy to see you stream now. I just home from work. Well, good. Ask your questions, John, while I am here, if you have any questions to ask. Okay, so what gets you confused is when feats features change the rule, like dual wielding. Yes, so dual wielding works differently. You're correct. So let me see if I can find dual wielding. That painful feat. I know exactly what you're talking about. Basic rules. Just give me a second while I just cycle through here. Let me just bring you over to that screen now while I find it. Okay. I might just shrink myself down even smaller so I can actually see things clearly. There we go. There we go. Let's go find dual wielding. And pardon me. Sorry if I'm doing a lot of that. I'm still really struggling with the weather and everything. So feats, where are we? Customizing options, spellcasting prerequisites, feats. Here we go. Oh dear. Okay, so it won't let me have the feats. Oh, that's because I need to have the player's handbook accessible. Okay, let's pull up the player's handbook because I've got the basic rules here. Player's handbook. Where are we? Customizing feats. There we go. Dual wielding. Bloody blah 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 blah. Here's the silly sod that he's talking about. You master fighting with 2 weapons, gaining the following benefits. You gain a +1 bonus to armor class or AC while you are wielding a separate weapon in each hand. Okay, so you could wield something that isn't a light weapon, but it would be a bit pointless, but you still benefit from having a +2 bonus if you're wielding 2 weapons in your hands. You can use 2-weapon fighting even with the one-handed melee weapon you are wielding isn't light. So you don't require those weapons to be light now. That's nice, okay? As long as you're using a one-handed weapon, it doesn't have to be light, you can wield it. You can draw or stow a two-handed weapon when you would normally be able to draw or stow only one. So this here is what you're talking about. Is that frankly what you're talking about? I think that's what you're talking about here. Dual wielding. Yes? You'll let me know if I'm on the wrong track here. Thank you for the $20 super chat, Agile Monk. I do appreciate it. Thank you. Relax, Fred. You're doing great. Thank you. I know I am not relaxed at all. Can I just say, people, there's a reason why other channels do not do this sort of thing. Okay? Nobody in their right mind. Why have I got that coming up there? Why have I got that coming up there? There's something weird going on here. Oh, there's this. No, that's there. That's supposed to be there. There's this other thing going on. Like I'm getting this dual thing going on here. Let's go back to this. See if I can fix that. I don't know what was going on. Okay, it's because I shifted screens. Okay, it's all right. Okay. All right, let's so this, people do not do this live. Do you know why? Because it's really easy to make mistakes. It's really easy to get flustered, and I have gotten flustered on many occasions. Yeah. Okay, so KD, I got your, I covered what you needed to. Okay, so let me get to the next person who had a question. I don't know if I've answered the questions that you needed, KD, but if I didn't, you let me know, okay? Dual wielding, changing the rules, yes. Okay, Seeker. So can literally anyone do two weapon fighting? Yes, they can, as long as they have two light weapons, yes, and they are proficient in those two light weapons. Otherwise, you won't get your proficiency bonus, which would be a bit silly, okay? Yes, look, a wizard could two weapon fight with two daggers or something. Yes, exactly right. So let's demonstrate that. Like, why not? Let's take this wizard here. Has got two weapon fighting. Why not? And is going to do two weapon fighting. Doesn't have the dual wielding feat. She's just going to do some two weapon fighting. But instead of using a short sword, I'm going to use a dagger. Why a dagger? Because that's what they're proficient with. I'm going to rub this little sucker out here and let me demonstrate that. You would be insane to do this, people. Like, to actually get your wizard to dual wield or do two weapon fighting with a couple of daggers is absolutely mental. But I do think it requires some respect to be trying to do something as crazy as that. Like, right, so actually the wizard, I believe, might actually be proficient in short swords. So you don't have to use daggers. Your wizard is proficient in short swords. So you can use a short sword with your wizard. Two short swords with your wizard. This is really strange. I suppose I want to do it with the dagger, though, because that would be more entertaining. So we've got the dagger. We'll do the dagger. Let's just get rid of this dice. We're using this silly thing. That's the one that hurts. The attack bonus for our wizard is the one from the Dungeons & Dragons original starter set. Okay, it's a +4 for those of you who are wondering what's going on here. So that's a 4. And whatever I add to my attack is going to be, it's going to be the dex. In this case, I'm pretty sure that a dagger is considered a finesse weapon. I'm pretty sure it is. You'll let me know if it isn't. And so that'll be dexterity modifiers +2. So we'll put that there. So our attack roll first. Attacking the goblin. I've got a 14. 14 plus 4 is 18. Well, that's more than the armor class of the goblin. Only got a 15. So we hit. Now let's do some damage. We roll the Caltrop of Death, which we've got a 4 on. Amazing. And what do we get? we get dexterity modifier is 2 for damage, and then the dice roll was 4, so that's 6. And the goblin's almost dead. Like, the goblin is almost dead. But we're not finished, people. We're not finished because we've got a bonus action. If we've got 2 daggers, right, we can do this sort of thing all over again. The only thing is that bonus is gone now. It's a bonus action. We've got 2 daggers in our hand. We make our attack. Roll our dice. We've got a 10. Oh, no. You know what this means. We're going to miss. It's only a 14. 14 is less than the armor class of the goblin who's got a 15. So we miss. But if we hadn't missed, we would have been able to roll the 4-sided decaltrop, the 4-sided dice, and that's what our damage would be. No modifier. So yes, anybody can do it. Does that mean that everybody should do it? No. It's probably not a great idea, but you can if you want. Oh dear. All right. Now, where did we get to? I got up to Seeker, his question with the wizard. Yes, 2-weapon fighting with 2 daggers or 2 short swords because they are proficient in short swords, and a short sword's a light weapon. A rapier and a dagger. I know where you're going with this. So a rapier is not a light weapon. A dagger is. So that's can the second weapon get the sneak attack bonus? So the only way you can wield the rapier is if you have dual wielding, that feat, okay? Because you won't be able to do 2-weapon fighting unless you have it. Unfortunately, with something like the rapier, it gets a little bit more complicated. I've had discussions with people in my group who have told me, like, Fred, traditionally, this is how you would do 2-weapon fighting. You would fight with a dagger and a rapier. Historically, it was the way that you would fight. But 5e doesn't support this unless you take a feat, which is mad, I realise. So the rapier is finesse, but it's not light. And it needs to be a light weapon to be able to do 2-weapon fighting. So if you don't have dual wielding, so you'd have to have dual wielding. Can the second weapon get the sneak attack bonus? Well, you can only have your sneak attack bonus once on a turn, I believe. That's probably what you're going for. You're trying to do sneak attack twice, and it doesn't work that way. Okay, where is this? Let me go back to sneak attack, and we'll pull that apart for you a little bit. Okay. Player's Handbook. Let us find the rogue, and we'll find sneak attack for you. Here we go. I'm going to shuffle over to a different screen. Display. This is the one I want. Okay, I think I got that right. Window. Okay, cool. Right, so let me just go over this with you and just sort of explain the basics. So we know how sneak attack damage works, right? You get a 6-sided dice at first level when you attack, and you have to have advantage on your attack roll. The weapon that you're using must be finesse, okay? Or it must be a ranged weapon, right? So that means you need to have, if you want to do 2-weapon fighting of it, you need to have, not only does the weapon need to be finesse, it also has to be light. Do you know what I mean? It's not, otherwise it's not going to work. You don't need to have advantage on the attack roll if the enemy of your target is like, if there's another enemy within 5 feet. So that means that it's usually your ally would have to be within 5 feet, or another enemy. And then you can use it, and you don't have to have advantage in this case. You can never have disadvantage on the attack roll, otherwise you can't use your sneak attack. All right, and they can't be incapacitated. But there's where the problem lies, okay? I think that's where what you're talking about there with regard to can the second weapon get the sneak attack bonus? I don't know why you would want to do that. Frankly, I don't. You only get it once. Yeah. once per turn. It says here, once per turn, you can deal an extra 1d6, and it goes up, of course. But because it's once per turn, on your turn, it's not going to work. What you can do is if you have an opportunity attack, you could use sneak attack as part of that, provided you have advantage or you have an ally within 5 feet of your target that you're attacking, or there's an enemy within 5 feet of them that can distract them. But otherwise, no. This probably is going to get all sealed up with the new rules potentially. I don't see this. I don't think the opportunity to do 2 attacks in a round is going to work in the future. I think you'll find that the intention is you only get to do sneak attack once a round. It says turn right now. I can assure you, I think it's going to go to the wording of round in the future. So you can do sneak attack once, and then after that, you can do it again if you have a reaction and there's an opportunity attack on somebody else's turn. Yep, that's it. And you only get 1 reaction, so you can only really do that once a round. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. All right, let's go back here. Let's go back here and let's see some more questions. What else have we got here that people have been asking? Katie, does that answer your question? And Toto, you're welcome. That's right. I am going to go with Katie because it's going to be the easiest way for me. All right. It looks like we are pulling apart the rogue features today. I tried to buy a super chat, but because I'm traveling internationally, Yahoo insists on using my current location when processing the billing. But I don't live in this country, so it fails. Katie, look, you're going to get a lot more from Patreon. Frankly, super chats I like them, and I'm glad that you feel like you wanted to give something. But frankly, you're going to get far more, because not only on Patreon are you getting the stuff that I upload to Patreon, you are supporting to ensure that these classes continue. Does that make sense? So you can come back and ask me stuff every week, and every week we do rules, 5e rules, mechanics. Sometimes it's magic, sometimes it's basic combat, sometimes it's a general role stuff, but every week it happens. Yep. Every week we do beginner character creation. Every week we do dungeon master preparation. Every week we cover the Lost One of Fandelver as a DM tutorials. And there will be some monster tactics coming in for players and dungeon masters in the future. I'm going to hold off on that until my brain doesn't explode. Right now, I'm struggling to keep up with everything. It's all right. So Toto, what do you got here? Europe. Okay. All right. Let's. We're going to Curse of Strahd question, and we're going back to my face for this one. I think that's more appropriate in this case. So we'll go black magic camera. Unless of course it switched itself off. It may have. Wasn't expecting that. Is it overheated? Is it freaked out? No. No. Black magic camera is not functioning. Not something I was expecting. Negative. Negative. Okay. That's a bit of a shock to the system. Wasn't expecting that at all. Maybe if I turn off the camera and turn it back on again, is it overheated? I don't know. Oh, there. Okay, she's back. Just turned itself off. Okay, all right. Transition over. All right, here we go. So, you're running the Curse of Strahd. I was wondering if the light can't rip. If the light can't rip, can produce enough light energy as to mimic sunlight. What? Toto, I'm confused as. You're about to run the Curse of Strahd. I was wondering if the light can't rip, can produce enough light energy as to mimic sunlight. I don't know what you're saying. You're going to have to explain a bit more. I don't understand. Yeah, only 1 sneak attack per turn. So you can do it on your turn, and you can do it on somebody else's turn, provided... Whoops, the camera's gone off again. All right, we're going to just skip on the Black Magic camera. Black Magic camera is not having a good day today. We'll just go back to this screen. Sorry about that, people. I don't know what's going on. It's having technical issues. Maybe it's overheating. It's pretty warm in here. Right, so next. Yeah, but when you take your sneak attack as part of an opportunity attack, it must be on their turn. It can't be on your turn. Yep, that's essentially how it works. So Seeker, you've got it right. Hi, David Rose. How you doing? Right, so let's see. If you miss with the main hand attack, but hit with the offhand attack, can you use sneak attack damage? If you hit with the offhand, yes, you can, David. But the only stipulation with two-weapon fighting, okay, is that you must strike. You must attempt to strike. You must use your action to make an attack. It doesn't actually state as such that that you must actually. Two-weapon fighting isn't that specific. Okay, as long as you make the attack, you're all good. If you don't make the attack, you don't get to do it. Yeah? They can only do the sneak attack on the first attack. The second attack with the offhand weapon can't deliver the sneak attack. That's right. It can be on a bonus action if the main action you made to attack is used to attack. If you miss, it doesn't matter because you still get to use your bonus action. So you can apply the sneak attack damage to the bonus action as long as you're not using it on the main action. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, Patreon is the best way. You get everything. Yeah, I suppose it can be. Okay, so Ski Dog, what do you got here? How about when you make a character and you get your starting items from what's that? Let's half orc and fighter. Do you get they think it is 10? I don't understand anything of that, Ski Dog. It doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. I don't understand what you're trying to say. That sentence structure is so bad, I can't figure out what you're trying to communicate. Toto, is the light cantrip able to create cast disadvantage to characters that have sunlight sensitivity? I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the situation where somebody decides to cast light on, say, the helmet of an enemy and try to blind them, or on their nose or something like that. And you figure, okay, they now got light in their eyes, they can't see properly, they are now blind. And if they've got sunlight sensitivity, then it's even worse for them. That's up to the Dungeon Master, Toto. That's up to the Dungeon Master. And yes, that's also true that the light cantrip doesn't produce sunlight. The daylight spell does that, but I know where you're coming from, what you're talking about, Toto, because it's a strategy that I've heard people talk about before. That's right, Ski Dog. It's just when you're typing stuff in, you've got to be very, very careful about what you say. Otherwise, I don't understand what you're saying. I can't figure it out. That's right. Yep. But you only get to apply your sneak attack once during your turn. Okay. All right. So, if that makes sense in terms of how the game works, great. What I will also do while I'm here is I will demonstrate a spell. Like, usually you can cast a spell of some kind. And I think maybe that would be quite useful for those of you who are interested, is like, how does spells work? And I'm going to use the wizard in this case. and just demonstrate how you would go about making an attack. Ray of Frost is probably the best option, I think, in this case. Ray of Frost is done at a distance, and it slows movement. Okay, Toto, you're welcome. Is it cozy? Truthfully, the camera is way too close to my desk. If I could get it higher, I would, but right now it's got a very funky looking clip on it. Ray of Frost. Now, one of the things you'll notice with Ray of Frost is you're rolling damage, okay, but you're also in this case, not only are you rolling damage, you are to hit. There's a hit modifier for this. So the wizard I'm using here, their spellcasting modifier at level 1 is a +5. So it's nice and easy. That's just your proficiency bonus plus your spellcasting modifier. In this case, it's intelligence. So my modifier is a +3, +2, comes to 5. That's how the number comes out, 5. Okay, that's to hit. And we're going to try and hit our goblin here. So we'll do that. And I roll my dice. I get a, what was that? That looks like a 4. So 4 plus 5 is 9. 9 is less than 15, which is the armor class of the goblin, so I miss. Your Ray of Frost is it's not effective. Okay, so you miss. So maybe we get another turn later on. We do another attack, provided we're still alive. The goblin hasn't eaten us. Let's do it again. I got a 7 plus 5 is only going to come out as 12, so that's still going to miss. An actual hit, and we're going to get a hit. We're going to get a hit. Just a 10 plus 5 is 15. So 15 is equal to or greater than. So we just managed to make it. Now you do damage. Now cantrips change the way they work the higher the level, right? So as a general rule, you'll find that the vast majority of this is fairly simple to understand. Ray of Frost, like all cantrips, you don't add a modifier to them. You're only rolling a dice for it, okay? So if you were wondering how do the cantrips work, they always tell you in the spell description how they work. And as long as you follow that, you're all good. So Ray of Frost, if I can pull it up. No, apparently I can't. Okay, there we go. Right. So at level 1, we're going to be rolling. It's got a pretty short range of 60 feet, but you're rolling an 8-sided dice. And as long as we hit, then the effect, the slowing effect, reducing it by 10 reducing its speed by 10 feet works. So you roll that dice there, that 8-sided dice, nothing else, people, nothing else. Okay. I got a 2. So at level 1, my cantrip does 2 frost damage, cold damage. That's it. Nothing more. And I slow the target as long as I hit. That's how a ranged spell attack works. Fairly simple, not hard. It's the same as if you were shooting a bow. It's the same sort of process as if you were using a close quarter melee weapon. It's all very much the same sort of stuff. Okay, let's go back to chat. Okay, you're welcome, KD. Patreon done. Right, so we'll obviously see you back here every week asking me more questions that are tough to answer, that confuse people and yourself. Oh, have you watched quite a lot of my stuff? Oh, good. So in the future, you will find that eventually I will start clipping some of these demonstrations and turning them into videos, short videos. We'll see how that goes. I've done that before. Hi, Dinomancer. Dinomancer is a patron, supports me on Patreon as well. Yes, I got my setup back. Now, I guess For those of you who are familiar or not familiar with advantage, if we were making an attack roll and we had advantage for whatever reason, frankly, it doesn't really matter too much, but let's say we have this character, this rogue is behind an arrow slit, hiding, and we've got a goblin over here. We would allow them, or the rogue, to have advantage on their attack roll, okay? And because they can't be seen, as long as they are hidden and the goblin doesn't know it, that the rogue is there, then you get advantage. Your unseen targets, you get advantage on your attack roll. If you get advantage, then what does that mean? You get to get sneak attack with this particular character. Yep. But let's have a look at how advantage works. Okay, attack, advantage. Okay, so referring back to our rogue, and our rogue should have a ranged weapon. It would be terrible if it didn't, but it does have a short bow, and that's close enough. It's a 5 to hit, and 1d6 for our damage. So we'll get rid of this dice here. We might need some additional damage for sneak attack damage, so we're going to put that aside as well. We're going to need them. So 5 for our attack, and our modifier when we hit is a +3 with our short bow for this character, okay, using dex. That's what our dexterity modifier is. Okay, all right, so take 2 20-sided dice and you roll your attack. You're going to take the highest result. I got a 13, but that's not as high as the 15. So I take the 15. Okay, 15 plus 5 is 20. 20 is good enough to hit the target. The target now knows that we're there because they just got hit by an arrow. But also, too, if they had missed, okay, they would still know where your position was currently. That doesn't mean they'll continue to know because you might move. But they know where you are currently, yeah, roughly. You're through this arrow slit. Now we're going to roll our damage. So it would be a 6-sided dice for the short bow. But because we've also got sneak attack, we've got to roll another dice at level 1. Okay, sneak attack damage as well. So we're going to roll both of them. I got 2 6s, which is pretty awesome if you ask me. So 3 for the dexterity modifier, 6 for the short sword, and another 6 for the sneak attack. We do not add our bonus twice. We don't add it to the sneak attack damage, okay? It doesn't happen that way. 12, 15. So you do 15 points of damage, and that goblin is squish out. Like that arrow went through his head, came out the other side. Yep. Dead as a doorknob. One of the things to remember with advantage is if you have multiple instances of advantage, you don't get to roll another dice, okay? You don't get to roll 3 20-sided dice or 4 20-sided dice. Doesn't work that way. If you have advantage and disadvantage, then they cancel each other out and you just roll 1 dice. If you have disadvantage, you roll 2 dice and you take the lowest result rather than the highest result. Advantage, roll 2 dice, take the highest result for advantage. It's a very elegant and simple system. Yep. Okay, so what have we got here? Does sneak attack work with spells? Okay. So no, it doesn't. Okay. The attack must use a finesse or a ranged weapon. So a finesse weapon. Okay, so it's got to be a finesse weapon. So finesse weapons are not spells. And it's got to be a ranged weapon. And a ranged weapon is not a ranged spell. Okay, it's not the same thing. So you can't use it with spells. Do not make a rogue that has attack rolls, spells that have attack rolls. If you're doing your arcane trickster, pick up something that doesn't require you to make saving throws and attack rolls. It's always a bad idea to do anything with spells that have attack rolls or saving throws with a arcane trickster, pick up utility function stuff. That's what the rogue does well. Arcane Trickster can get around everything under the sun. They just won't be casting spells. Okay, and you won't be able to stack up that sneak attack. It doesn't work. Jean, I'm sure that answers your question. Next time I'll ask you to walk me through the whole combined Booming Blade with other smite challenge. Oh my god. My paladin keeps getting confused, and his confusion confuses me a lot. Well, yeah, I can understand that. I don't know that I even want to contend with I don't even know if I want to contend with that. Booming Blade and the smites. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know, dude. Maybe that'll be something that maybe I'll just like don't want to get involved in that one. Booming Blade causes more arguments at a table than any other spell. Frankly, I wish it was gone. I know people love it. But it's a pain in the ass. It really is. Could the hide action take you out of combat? Can the hide action take you out of combat? It could potentially. So here's what you could wind up doing. You make your attack. The goblin knows where you are, right? And then let's move this out of the way. And you decide, okay, well, it's time to bug out. I'm going to move 5 feet here. Open the door as an interaction, which I can do for free on my turn. Okay. 5 feet, 10, 15, 20, 25. And I'm pretty sure our halfling only moves 25 feet, although new halflings move 30 feet. Then I can use, if I was level 2 and not level 1, then I could use my cunning action and keep going. Or I can move to this position and hide. And now the goblin might think I'm here and come around here. But even if they come around here, they can see me. But yeah, there are options. You could potentially, depending on your environment, it could take you out of the battle. It's happened to me more than a few times. So Toto, absolutely can happen. Advantage is required for sneak attack, but only if you don't have, there isn't an enemy within 5 feet of your target. Yeah, you can definitely have sneak attack on a short bow attack because it's a ranged weapon. Yeah, you're not making a spell attack basically. Can you pass on answering the Booming Blade this time around? It's an advanced topic. It definitely is. It definitely is a very difficult topic. And I've had people ask it, and frankly, yeah. Anyway, I think maybe if there aren't any more questions, I think we might be done for today, and I will head off. So I've done an attack. I've shown you a spell attack. I've done a close quarter melee attack. We've done a ranged spell attack. That is, we've done a little bit around advantage and disadvantage. We've done something around tracking initiative for those of you who needed it. So I feel like we might have covered a lot of the stuff we needed to, which is great. What I will also just quickly do is just point out what your turn kind of looks like. Let's get rid of all of these. So we've got some wolves over there. We've got some goblins over here. Okay, so your turn, when it's your turn to take an action, your rogue can, at level 1, go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Move. Yep. One of the other things that you can do as a rogue, which can be very, very smart to do, is to break it all up. And that is, if you start here, you could, 1, if you can see this goblin, take a shot with your short bow, if you can see them. Okay, you just need to be able to draw a line to them. With them being within range, take a shot, make your attack. If you don't have advantage and you don't have an ally within 5 feet, you don't get your sneak attack, but that's all right. You've made your attack. If they don't know you're there, then you would have advantage and you would be able to actually use your sneak attack. Then you can move into cover 5, 10, 15. Out of range, they can't see you. 20, 25. Okay, you got goblin. You got the wolves coming up from behind though. That's a bit of a problem. But yes, you can be behind cover like these doors and move out, take your shot, and move back. Can I advise people when you're playing the game, use cover, like use total cover wherever possible. Use arrow slits. If there's arrow slits, hide behind arrow slits if you can. Even dropping prone. If they can't get you in melee, if they can't get up close, then dropping prone means you're harder to hit at range. So dropping prone, absolutely a good idea. Moving through doorways and then back into a room, great idea. Use the cover. Yep. What else have we got here? Yes, a high elf rogue with mage hand cantrips makes a good burglar. Yep, it absolutely does. You go arcane trickster and you can do pretty much anything. No, you can't. So, Jean, what you'll find is with you, there's no such thing as a delay action now. Okay, there used to be in older versions of the game. It's now called a readied action. The only thing you can ready in action is to move. So you have a trigger and you move, or you use an action, which might be to make an attack, cast a spell. Maybe you decide that you're going to take the dodge action as a readied action. Okay, which would be pointless, but you could do that if you wanted to. You could even use the... there's no point in actually taking the dash action as readied action. You just use the move action. What else can you do? You can use a search. You can use an object as a readied action. But yeah, readying an action is not the optimal choice unless you have no other choice. The only time you use a readied action is if you can't see the target. So if you can't see the goblins because they're hiding and you're waiting for them to pop out, you would ready an action to use your bow to shoot them when you can see them. They move out, up, I can see it, shoot, before they get to you. That's really the only best time that you do it, is only when you can't see the target, you're waiting for them to pop their head out or show their body. Then you shoot them, okay? Or you do something else, cast a spell. Yeah. So you can't do any... The only thing you're allowed to do if you take the ready to action is move or take an action, but you can't do something else during your turn and then decide to take the ready to action. It doesn't work that way. Is that right? I think that's right. Can you move? You may be able to do that. I'm just trying to think now. What's the wording around that? No, you could move and then ready an action. Yes, you could do that. There we go. There's an example of Fred's brain frying in this office. So yes, you could move, take the ready to action, and then move from here to here, take the ready to action to shoot anybody who comes out and presents a target. You could do that. Yep. JP, how's it going, JP? Every rogue that I have used in Fred's campaigns always takes alert, lucky and mobile feats. Assassin rogue going first with sneak attack on advantage, lots of pain. Yes, it definitely is. Hi, JP. JP's from my home group. Major Laser, is this the correct topic to ask about henchmen combat? Yes, you can. I don't know if I'm going to have enough time to answer the question, but I'll do my best. Henchmen, hench person, hench folk, hench whatever, hirelings, this is what you're talking about, right? So, Major Laser, ask away. I'll do what I can. Did you cover off... Yeah, Dinomancer, we did talk about offhand attacks. We did talk about two-weapon fighting, okay? That's right. Dropping prone helps against ranged attacks. For those of you who are unsure as to why that might be the case, it's because you present less of a target. But if they can get up close with a sword and they're standing right over you, then you are in a bad place because now they have advantage. Whereas if they're shooting at you and you're prone, they have disadvantage to shoot you. So that's better. You want that one. Yes, Dungeon Masters might use elevation as cover as well. Absolutely. JP, use your fellow teammates as cover works. Yes, so that's another point. That's so what JP's saying is, if you have your halfling behind, say the wizard, if they're being targeted by, say, a short bow from a goblin, then your rogue gets a +2 because another creature of medium size or small, is it medium size or smaller? I think it's that. I think it's medium size or smaller, does benefit. Like you do get a +2 to your armor class. So the rogue, instead of having an armor class of 14, would have an armor class of 16 from the goblin because the wizard's in the way. So yes, you can use your party members as a pincushion if you wanted to. I don't know if they'll like that, but you can. Look, cover rules get really complicated, people, because there's a section that talks about like how what size you are too. That can affect things as well, and it's frankly it's not in the place you would expect. If you look at the rules on half cover, that means that enemies and friends count as cover as well. Yep. So that's an easy question to answer, Major Laser. I can answer that question easily. Henchmen, hirelings are controlled by the Dungeon Master or GM if they want to control them. And PCs control them if they want to control them, and the Dungeon Master is happy for that to take place. Convention would be try not to be the one who controls the henchmen or hirelings yourself if you're the Dungeon Master, because it's a lot of extra work. But usually Dungeon Masters, I find, have conditions. So if your players are using the henchmen as red shirts, then the Dungeon Master will step in and say, no, you can't send them off first to trigger all the traps and take all the damage and die and perish at your hands. Also, too, henchmen get paid in advance. This is for insurance purposes. This is legally binding. No henchmen, henchperson, henchfolk, hirelings go adventuring with player characters without being paid up front, and they never keep the money on them. It always goes to their family first or into a bank, so the players can't profit from their death. Okay? So yeah, I think that answered your question. There's no law around this, okay? It's up to the Dungeon Master. That's it. There are no strict rules around that. Jean, it's again, it's up to the Dungeon Master. I mean, if that's how you prefer to do it, Jean, then great. But there's no strict rule. How's it going, Spirit Wolf? It's all about play style and what Dungeon Masters prefer to do. That's where we're at here, okay? It's all about that. Okay, all right. I think I need to cycle on out because I've kind of answered all the questions that you guys had, and I've done a little bit of demonstration. I feel like I've covered most of the stuff that I kind of needed to. If there's nothing that's sort of standing out for you, then it's time for me to pass on. Yes, henchmen, hench people, hirelings get part of the treasure. And they get experience points. And they level up. That's right. Exactly. You've got it. All right. I don't understand why this black magic camera is just struggling to stay functional today. For whatever reason. Maybe something's overheating. Is the ATM switch gone crazy? No, apparently not. Well, okay. Well, let's do my see you later. I just want to thank everybody who showed up. Like it's much easier for me to do this stuff when people actually do show up. So I'd appreciate it when you do. But anyway, I want to thank all of my patrons who support me on Patreon. I really do appreciate it. They ensure that these classes continue into the future. and you get all of the stuff that I put together on Patreon. Okay, if it's not there, you just ask for it. It will eventually wind up being there. But a lot of the stuff we build and so forth winds up there eventually. Also, too, I want to thank everybody who's been watching my live streams, participating, asking questions, giving feedback. It does help a lot. For watching the replays of my live streams and my edited videos. And wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, or the night, or the wee early morning, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours, and hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. I'm thrilled that you were able to make it, Vincent. And hi, John Fraser. How's it going?